Alright, so this video will be talking about how to solve a quadratic inequality. So in secondary 2, I understand that we all learn how to solve a quadratic equation, right? So example, x squared plus 2x minus 3 equal to 0. So how do I solve this quadratic equation? So very simple, right? So first thing first, I must always factorize. So if you do your quadratic factorization, you will get x plus 3 bracket x minus 1 bracket equal to 0. And of course, you solve for the so-called equation, right? So x is either equal to negative 3 or positive 1. Okay, so this is how we solve an equation. What if you encounter something like this? If I give you something like x squared plus 2x minus 3, but instead of giving you an equal sign right here, right, I give you an inequality sign. So example, more than 0. Okay, so how do I solve this thing? Okay, so of course, we only learn how to solve a linear inequality. So what do I mean by linear? Linear means something like this. So x plus 2 more than 3, right? So how I solve this, I just move the plus 2 to the right hand side. So it's x more than 3. So when you move the 2 to the right hand side, become minus 2. Okay, so x is more than 1. So notice one thing is that my x here is just x to the power of 1. It's not x to the power of 2 or 3, right? Okay, so if you encounter like x squared plus 2x minus 3, the first step is always to do your factorization. So same thing, x plus 3 x minus 1 bracket more than 0. Okay, so of course our first reaction or the first way to solving is something like I will do the same way as our solving of quadratic equation. So I'll just put x more than, or maybe I just write down the whole thing first. So x plus 3 more than 0, or x minus 1 more than 0. Then of course x more than negative 3 or x more than positive 1. So that's our first reaction to solve. Okay, but this is wrong. Okay, so we don't whenever we encounter this, we don't do it the same way as we solve quadratic equation. So how do we approach this question is that, okay, so let me just erase first. Okay, I must first of all draw a graph, method 1. Okay, so I teach you method 1 first. So method 1 is graph drawing, right? So notice that just now I factorized already. So x plus 3, x minus 1, right? So I just label according to the graph. So here. Okay, so if you solve your equation, let's just say it's the same equation. So one is negative 3, another is positive 1, right? So I label down the negative 3 and positive 1 on the graph. Okay, next thing, I will need to look at which part of the graph am I looking at. So if you look at the inequality, the inequality wants us to have something more than 0. More than 0, you're actually looking at this particular portion of the graph. Okay, more than 0. More than 0 means you're above the graph. Alright. So okay, so of course let us take a look at this one first. So you want to satisfy this green color portion, you must ensure that your x is more than 1. Okay, so next will be maybe I use a black color. So same thing, I want to satisfy this black color thing, right? So you must put x, or x is less than negative 3, because if you look at this portion, right, you are getting lesser than negative 3. So you must put less than negative 3. Okay, so maybe I give it another example, but the same equation. Okay, so the same equation, just that maybe I give you this. Right? So instead of giving you more than 0, I give you less than 0. So if I give you less than 0, and I draw the graph again. So this is positive 1, this is negative 3. Okay, since you want less than 0 right here, you must look at the bottom, right, the so-called the negative portion of the graph. So negative portion of the graph is right here, right? So okay, so in order to fulfill this green color region, shaded region, you must ensure that x is more than negative 3, because for this particular part, you are getting bigger than negative 3, right? Okay, but of course there's a this part, so must be less than 1, because for this particular portion you are getting lesser and lesser than positive 1. Okay, so this is using our method 1 to solve a quadratic inequality. So maybe I do a very quick summary. So first thing first, you must always, in order to solve a quadratic inequality, you must always factorize. Okay, do your quadratic factorization. Okay, second of all, you can use method 1 to draw a graph. Okay, then of course the third, see which region you are interested in. Determine the region. Okay, so these are the 3 steps to help you solve a quadratic inequality.